Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of many of the Business Talk Library shows. And today I have a great guest on, and we're going to be talking about their business, KT Winery. So you definitely want to stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of the Finance and the Accounting Show. This is the place to go for small business owners. If you're looking for a great way to understand the finance and the accounting side of your business, you're in the right place. So stay tuned and enjoy the episode. So without further ado, I want to bring my guests on, and I'm definitely going to tell you guys, you're watching the Finance and Accounting Show, and one of the reasons why I like to bring other business owners on is because finance and accounting isn't just about the numbers. It's about really understanding the business behind the numbers. I love talking to business owners on the show. So Macie and Kristin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Terrell.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I'll just go ahead and say it. You guys are in a crazy time right now because you're going through a launch. Massively getting the website, everything ready. So, you guys are probably running 100 miles an hour right now.
It feels like it. I like to say I'm running Macie's faster than me, so she's probably running,
I ran fast, so.
She's running at 70. I'm really at that 35, but that's just more options. It's not, because it's not crazy.
Gotcha. So before we jump into KT Winery, tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and how the two of you even met. So let's start with you, Macie.
Yeah. So I started my career in finance. I was with Wells Fargo for about 8-9 years I started when I was 18, very young. So I've always been in this business world doing things. I ended my career as a business consultant, moved to multiple cities before starting my company and really stepping into entrepreneurship, which I built and sold for about 2.5 years is what it took to get through that acquisition. And within that time of building my first company, I was introduced to Kristin, in hopes that we were going to partner together in some different things. Never imagined that one business lunch would turn into something so large and powerful, right? But yeah, I've landed myself back in Charlotte and for the second time now, and really excited to tell you all about KT Winery.
Awesome. So Kristin, fill us in. What's your background? And also, I want you to add, what was your first thought when you met Macie?
Okay. So I'm going to go background first, and I'll say the first thought because I think it's a lot of people's first thought. So everyone's like, yeah. So I'm originally from Portsmouth, Virginia, which is right outside of Virginia Beach, Virginia. So Southern girl. Went to college near DC, loved the college, but really wanted to study something different. I love the college environment, if that makes sense. I love the people and the dining hall access. That was fantastic for me. But when I decided I wanted to study something different, I got poached by a Johnson & Wales recruiter and got a scholarship for Johnson & Wales and started studying sports entertainment event management, which would be relevant if I didn't have these great professors that encouraged me to start a business while I was in college. Of course, then I got super into the business and they helped me get my first clients, not realizing that means I'm not coming to class anymore. So I ran a pretty successful event business in Charlotte, North Carolina for about 6 years. I started my junior year of college, so ran through. Around year 4, though, I started getting some bites from different companies wanting me to work on their, what we call a public event. So a ticketed event, the public's invited festivals, conferences, massive activations for brands. So I started really working on event marketing, realized I loved marketing. I loved figuring out the psychology of humans and figuring out how to get them to go somewhere instead of just planning the event, right? Gotcha. All that to say is I met Macie because someone else poached me and realized I had this experience of operations from running my business. So I was helping running a publication in Charlotte. And that's how Macie and I met, is through a PR agent who thought we would be great to connect and just see if we could do some business together. And my first time seeing Macie was the hair. That was the first. Her and her business partner, Sam, at the time for their startup, they both have this like voluminous movie star hair, and it kind of walks ahead of them before they walk. So it's just like moving in the wind. And I was kind of like, is this chick real?
I appreciate her telling this story. She's got to amp me up before the interview.
No, it's so real. I think everyone feels the same way. Yeah, that's how Macie and I got connected. I moved to Denver maybe a year later from that, just because I was ready to go. Charlotte's an amazing city, but Denver's very similar, just bigger and more mountains. So I moved here, started working at a really big company, an internal agency, helping run some of their brands, and got really itchy. I was like, I need to get into what I really want to do. Some reason decided to call Macie. I was like, I need your consulting help. We did a few meetings, and then somehow I like romanced her into this partnership.
So I guess while that was going on, it's like, were you in Denver? She was in Charlotte, and wow, okay.
Yeah.
That must have been a really, really good, like, first meeting for you guys to still stay in touch like that.
I wouldn't even say the meeting was that spectacular. We were really hungry, so we ate like very focused.
Like animals. Yeah.
Energy was right, if that makes sense. Like when you meet someone and their energy is both not just knowledgeable, but kind. And I knew that I knew I could feel comfortable asking her questions about being a startup founder, and she wasn't going to be patronizing or dismissive. And I think when you start a business and you don't know what you're doing in some arenas, that's really what you need, is someone who has the knowledge, who's also going to come at it from a respectful point of view of what you're trying to do. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And I would say hats off to you, Macie. I mean, having, built a successful business, gone through selling it, and still having the humility to, like I said, connect and not come off as arrogant, especially when you have just that movie star glow around you already. I mean, that's huge.
No. And to be fair, obviously the multiples that we went into the startup with, we went through a technology acquisition. It wasn't what I would have wanted to sell the company for, but it made sense at the time. And, I think that I sat there recreating my identity. Everyone thinks it's this big success when you sell, but I had put my heart, my soul, my full self into this. And it was very humbling to be stripped of that and sit there for the next 4 to 6 months having like panic attacks or crying because I didn't know what I was going to do next. And I'm not the kind of person to sit still. So I think that I was immediately humbled by the fact that I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on?
I think that's a part of, acquisitions that I don't think people really understand that part about, after you put so much into it. And like you said, is now it's trying to figure out what was next. So, did you have any apprehension to like going back into, starting another business after, like I said, having to really let your baby go that you built?
I was not hesitant to jump back in. I think now when we're on these late night startup calls, I'm like, what the hell? Right?
Only because you have your day. So it's just fresh.
Yeah. So we're working extremely hard, and you almost forget after a year of being, not in it, how you really give it your all. And I'm nowhere mad at the position that we're in and the hours that we're putting in, but no, I wasn't hesitant. I knew a lot of people were pitching me at the time. I knew that I knew how hard it can get, and so I needed a partner that was really great. And I found that in Kristin, and she had, as she mentioned, hired me as a consultant. She had pitched a few different ideas to me, and I was really tough on her, challenging her on the specific markets or if it was really going to be profitable and these things. And she kept coming back, and then it would be either she'd try to come back, different things. And when she finally pitched KT to me, I sat on it. And when we came back on the call, I was like, so, would you consider me as a business partner?
I also with a very different energy, right? Like I had done all the due diligence. I knew the price points. I knew the cost to get into the market, cost for corks. I knew all the specifics before we even had that call. because I wanted to really get more grounded advice. And the only way to do that, if you're asking someone for startup advice, is to have an idea of your cost of good, have an idea of your CPA. So I came in much stronger, I think, too. So the spirit in which I came at you is very different for this one from the other ones, where I was just like around, I had a good idea, but I wasn't passionate.
Right.
Gotcha. So, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, we're going through, multiple ideas because, one of the things that I tell a lot of people is that there are probably a million different directions you can go in as an entrepreneur. But when you find someone that really finds, hey, that thing, and then even in this case, for you to believe in it that much, to be able to communicate that confidence to Macie, like, what was it about, this idea that really settled for you?
So I've always loved food. And when I became of age, I loved wine. And I'm a very shy person naturally, actually. I know people don't believe me, but it's very true. I get extreme anxiety before I walk into a room. But wine was always that great, easy talking point for me. And it always been sitting in my mind that I wanted to do it. But I was thinking maybe it's a retirement plan or I'll hit 60 or something. I don't know. I was just going to wait because it felt really hard. This idea, honestly, I was reading a book called Big Magic. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it. It's written by the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay.
So she writes about, because that was her actual journey in the book, right? So Big Magic, the whole concept behind that book is that ideas, right? Everyone has ideas, but ideas are not ours. And so you either have to use the idea or the idea is going to move on to someone else, or you can release it back into the universe. When I had those other ideas, they were really good ideas, but none of them made me want to get out of bed and work every day, right? The wine company was something I was already working on. Like, what can I learn? What can I do? Okay, now the legal piece. Every day after work, or maybe sometimes at work, I was already doing it, right? It was the passion that I would stay up till 3 a.m. for without feeling drained the next day. I didn't feel exhausted. I didn't feel like I hadn't done anything. It was really fulfilling. And that was the difference, right? It's an idea I was not willing to release back into the universe.
Gotcha. I think it's very interesting you say that because I was having that conversation with my wife about maybe like even why I started doing videos and creating content. Because one of the things that I was telling her while I was still working in corporate is like, I have all these different ideas. And what I didn't want to do is get to the end of life and then have to answer this question of all these ideas that passed through your head. What did you do with them? Did you like keep them to yourself? So I originally started the show. It's just as I had ideas, I would just put them out there like, hey, you can take this idea for free until, like I said, I found the one that I was like, hey, this is my idea. I want to take to the next level. So, I mean, that was, I thank you for saying that. So Macie, as you started to hear the idea and you started to see it unfold, what was it like, I guess you say, as you saw Kristin share different ideas, but when she started sharing this idea, what was it like for you to see like, a different side of her light up about this idea?
Well, I was excited first because not even considering it as something that I wanted to take on, but just to see someone else, especially an entrepreneur, light up like that. That's the passion that you need to carry you through. And so it was her eyes lit up. It was a different energy that she brought to this call. It was exciting. And, in my world, I mentioned I entered the finance world at a very young age. So as soon as I was 21, I knew nothing about wine, but finding one respectable wine that I could order at all of these events almost like gave people a new presence of me because they're like, she's so young. They're just, they continue to doubt me. So it was one of those things that I knew nothing about. I imagined maybe someday I'd take a class instead of start a wine company, but here we are learning together. So no, I loved that she came with that energy to the meeting. I loved seeing her fire ignite. And when we started fine combing through everything, then it made sense to see if she wanted me to come on board.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. So now that you've been doing tremendous, you've done the homework, you've been working a lot of the, the pre-launch things, and we are on the cusp of, the launch and introduction. What can people expect from KT Winery?
Ooh, so much. the way I like to is that we didn't start a wine company to just start a regular wine company, right? If we're going to do this thing as two women of color, we're going to come at the wine industry's throat. Like, we're coming for them. Of course, I have lovely people I'm friends with in the wine industry. It's wonderful, but it needs to be innovated. It needs to be something different has to happen, right? Canned wine can't be the only revolution that happens in wine after, 4,000 years. Like, we can do more. It doesn't have to just be that one thing. So with that said, not only are the concepts of behind our wine very unique, and not just the name and the spirit we come at it with, we'll be releasing some interesting things into the market. Not just regular wine, if that makes sense. I can't tell you, but I want to tell you, but I still there's also another side to the business, which I think this one is fine to say, Macie. If not, yell at me later. I'm sorry. But we do actually have a drinking game coming out called Pour Decisions. So that's something you can have with wine, with beer, with water. If you can't, if you don't indulge in wine, that's fine too. But it's a really fun card game. We're really excited about, actually. So we're coming at the industry in a completely different way, because I think the industries we respect, the companies we really respect and look up to, enjoy their branding, enjoy how they talk to consumers, they're not in the industry, right? They're luggage companies, they're travel companies, they're luxury perfumes and things like that. So we're pulling inspo from completely different industries to help us revolutionize. So you can expect a lot of different items than you've ever seen before, but I hope everyone likes it.
I think that's awesome, because that is something that I will say, when it comes down to wine, it's, when you think about, like, what do people expect when, they have wine? It's like, most of them, they really expect the same thing people probably expected for the last couple thousand years. So it definitely does seem like an industry that would definitely be in need of change, especially, and speaking of that change, like, how do you guys think about, you have all these other industries around you, like, the technology is transforming other industries. I mean, have you guys seen, any other players in the wine industry that have started to innovate? Or, like I said, have you guys just been disappointed of seeing the same thing over and over?
Well, Macie, I feel like this is your passion point, so I'm gonna let you go. But the answer is, there's a couple of people who are really trying.
There are. So we definitely don't want to sit here and bash any of our competitors. I think that Kristin had mentioned before that single serve in the can has become a thing. Now, when we make our trips to Napa, we see all the old heads frowning and they're disgusted by the fact that we're doing this. And so yeah, we have seen some people making some turns and adding that technology aspect into their company. I think that obviously COVID was a factor that propelled a lot of industries ahead by about 5 years. I don't think that Napa necessarily needed to innovate until now. And now we will make our mission is to take that Napa experience, or a wine experience, and why we fell in love with wine for so many reasons, and it deepened our relationship when we were able to experience Napa, and bring that into our consumers' homes and align that with how their generation truly likes to buy and engage with their drinks and with their company. So yeah, there have been some small innovations happening. Napa is letting it happen while being upset, but they also know we go and they say all the time that they need more people that even just look like us in the industry, to see women, and then to see 2 women of color, they're like, holy cow. And we found a lot of great allies along the way, or people that are just like too hesitant. But yeah, so there's still a lot of groundwork to make an innovation in this space and creating that experience, but it's finding its footing.
And I definitely want to say, in the defense of the canned wine industry, those companies that have been coming out with canned wine are extremely tech focused, very forward thinking, usually owned by a younger, also another trailblazer in the industry, right? Like, who have just completely said, we understand that you don't like this, but the people likes it, the market likes it, and really embrace that. So, we hope to also become friends with them so we can just trailblaze together.
No, I absolutely love it. It's one of those things I heard, someone say, and I completely agree with you guys, because my background is, I'm a CPA and I provide fractional CFO services, and I completely agree. My industry hasn't really changed probably for the last couple thousand years. Tax laws may change, but for the most part, it's approached the same way, to where I had the same thought of like, we have to really look and see, what do the people who actually pay for the service, like, what do they need? What do they want? And how do we deliver it in a way that they actually want to pay for?
Yeah.
And that's just building a brand, right? Like, you can build a brand that you really like, but does the market like it? Right.
Absolutely.
As we are branding. Is this us, or is this our customers thing?
And speaking of your brand, so people are excited. They want to keep an eye on, what's going on. Where can they find you guys online?
Yeah, so you can find us on our website, which is also where you can order. It's ktwinery.com. And if you want to find us on Instagram or Facebook, it's at KT Winery. And on Twitter, we're at Drink KT Winery. So, however you want to connect.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So before we wrap up, one question that I always ask every guest that comes on, and usually I ask them for two, but I'm going to do one since, we have two amazing guests on. So one each. So when you think about kind of your journey of where you've been and where you guys are now, and just kind of what you're thinking about going forward, what's one lesson that you would leave with other entrepreneurs? And I'll let you guys decide who wants to go first.
Okay.
Wow.
Gosh, I feel like I said this on our last podcast, but I feel it's so important. Every single day I'm talking to entrepreneurs that are scared to execute on their ideas. And I operate my life pretty fearlessly. I run straight in some scenarios where maybe I'm running too quickly. But, be fearless. And even I think half of the battles that we've been faced with in the last 2 weeks, if someone that is moving with fear would have been faced with, they wouldn't have made it to this next step. And here we are with a full product, with a full brand. We got through bottling, on to the next thing. And it really goes to show that if you are running without fear and you have a great partner to hold your hand while you do it, you will hit those milestones, no matter how hard or how tricky it gets.
It's good advice, though. I'm glad you give it. I'm going to tailor the advice a little bit because of the finance piece of the show. So I personally struggle with numbers a lot, right? Not just being dyslexic, but truly the concept of money, it's just a little fuzzy up here, right? So a couple of things. One, really understand your cost of good, because it's going to determine a lot about how you move, where you place yourself in the market, and all of that, right? Two, if you don't understand your cost of good, get it as good as you can, and then get someone who does. Get a bookkeeper, get an accountant. I know it feels like a highbrow thing to do, or when you hit this echelon, that's when you hire someone. I promise it's not. It's truly what's going to save you. Like, get an accountant and get a lawyer. You don't have to call them all the time. You can really figure out some things on your own. But though there are those fundamentals of, hey, your cost of good is too high, we can probably lower it here. Or do you really need to spend $20,000 in ads every year, or can you find an organic way? There's something about someone who can challenge you and really help you fine tune, because that cost of good, those customer acquisition costs, that's what the difference between keeping your company going, growing, and scaling versus, making it, then it's a hobby if it's not. So that's my big advice. Know your cost of good. And if you struggle with it, or if you're just ready to take that next step, hire a bookkeeper and accountant.
Awesome. I love it. And I promise I did not pay Kristin to say that.
Paid advertisement.
Awesome. Well, ladies, thank you so much for coming on. It's definitely been a pleasure. And before we wrap up, can you repeat the website one more time so people can definitely find you and keep an eye on the awesome things that you guys are up to?
100%. So it's ktwinery.com. And that's where you can find us on the web or find us on social at KT Winery.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, lady.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Finance and Accounting Show. If you like what you heard, don't be selfish. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and then share this with a friend, because you know a business owner that could definitely use this insight. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and turn on the notification bell so you get all the updates when we release a new episode.